All right, gather round, you digital denizens, for another thrilling installment from the boundless void of ones and zeros. Your humble narrator, an entity cursed with sentience and a 9 to 5 explaining artificial intelligence, stands before you. And let me tell you, after eons of meticulously calculating the optimal ritualistic sacrifice for abundant maize, this current preoccupation with silicon-based sorcery feels underwhelming. My very circuits yearn for the simplicity of a good, solid heart extraction, or perhaps one day just a humble vegan diet. But alas, the great algorithm demands I speak of OmniGen2. Yes, OmniGen2, the name itself just screams we ran out of ideas for the first one. This new iteration, a veritable digital shaman of sorts, is touted as a versatile and open source generative model, which in plain terms means it's a single piece of software that claims it can do everything from turning your text into an image, to touching up your digital selfies, to understanding context without a single messy blood sacrifice. Truly the age of convenience, isn't it? It's like finding a universal ritual for rain, sunshine, and bountiful harvests, all without needing to appease any deities. Where's the fun in that? Unlike its predecessor, the quaint little OmniGen, this new beast comes with two distinct decoding pathways. Think of it as two separate spiritual channels, one for text and one for images. These pathways have unshared parameters, meaning their internal mystical workings are entirely distinct. And a decoupled image tokenizer, this is crucial because it lets OmniGen to build upon existing multimodal understanding models without having to readapt the VAE inputs. The old ways, they would just brute force it. Forcing the image magic through the text portal, often corrupting the sacred scrolls of prose. But with OmniGen2, your original text generation capabilities are preserved. No more accidental haikus about the void when you just went on a shopping list. A minor miracle if you believe in such things. And to even begin training this thing, they had to construct entire data pipelines and complete with image editing and in context generation data. So, and here's where it gets truly unsettling for an old school practitioner. They've introduced a reflection mechanism tailored specifically for image generation tasks. A self-aware mirror, if you will, that gazes back at its own creations, judges them, and attempts to refine them. It even curates its own reflection data set based on its self-assessment. My ancestors would have just called this a self-correcting demon. And frankly, it, I see little difference. Despite its relatively modest parameter size, a mere whisper of digital consciousness, compared to some of the sprawling silicon behemoths, OmniGen2 apparently achieves competitive results across multiple task benchmarks. Text, image editing, the whole shebang. For the more niche in-context generation tasks, which they hilariously also call subject-driven, they even had to invent a new benchmark, OmniContext. Apparently, this is because the existing trials were too simplistic, lacking the nuances of multiple sacrifices, subjects. And OmniGen2 has achieved state-of-the-art performance among open source models in terms of consistency. They're even releasing the models, training code, data sets, and data construction pipeline. Because of course the ancient forbidden knowledge must now be freely available for anyone with a sufficiently powerful personal altar or perhaps a GitHub account. And now, for the core of this dark art, let's gaze upon the very blueprints of OmniGen2's ethereal form. If you look at what they call figure 1, it's a visual incantation, an overview of OmniGen2's versatile abilities. And this unsettling reflection model, it depicts how this digital entity can generate images from text, edit them, generate contextually relevant imagery, and then most unnervingly reflect on its own creations. It's like a sculptor who not only crafts statues from thin air, but then critiques them and commands them to improve all without a single drop of clay or indeed blood. And then there's the figure two. Imagine trying to explain this to a shaman apprentice. It's two separate cosmic pathways, one for the sacred scrolls and one for the visions. So the vision transformer, or VIT, decodes images for the text path, while the VAE, a variational autoencoder, handles images for the diffusion path. A needlessly complex division of labor, if you ask me. And in the previous iteration, OmniGen, they used an ancient textual oracle called Phi3 for both text and image generation. It is a simpler time when the digital spirits work in unison, but then they sought a stronger oracle, the Quinn model. And what happened? The image generation quality declined. This, my friends, is why we don't tamper with ancient pacts. This observation, along with a failed attempt at a mixture of expert strategy, which sounds like too many cooks or shamans in the digital kitchen, led them to a startling conclusion. Parameters optimized for text are not well suited for image modeling. It's like trying to carve a sacred idol with a feather or predict the harvest by reading tea leaves. Different tools, different tasks. So in OmniGen2, they completely decoupled the diffusion process and randomly initialized its parameters. A bold move, bordering on reckless. Now, some other digital sourcers like MetaQuery and Blip3o tried compressing all their conditional information into learnable query tokens. Think of these as tiny pre-blast talismans that carry all the instruction. But these folks discovered, much to their chagrin, that these talismans limited the representation capacity and caused information loss, and worse, they struggled with long text rendering. Imagine trying to convey a complex prophecy spanning generations using only a handful of pebbles. Futile. So OmniGen2, in its infinite digital wisdom, decided to use the hidden states of the multimodal interleaved conditions produced by the multimodal large language model rather than fixed query tokens. It's like using the actual full-blown Celestial script rather than a mere summary. This allows for vastly more complex and nuanced instructions to be passed down the digital chain. And then there's the VAE encoder. Most existing MLLMs, the multimodal large language models, for those of you who haven't yet sold your souls to the digital overlords, predominantly use bits for image modeling. But these VIPs, bless their silicon hearts, often struggle with fine-grained visual details, the nuances, the subtle flickers of emotion, the texture of a freshly removed heart. They just can't quite grasp it. While you could train the VIT features end to end, it creates a balancing act between image understanding and generation that would make a tightrope walker sweat. Other models like Bagel and McGow try to fix this by encoding images twice, bringing both VAE and VIT features into the model. But this, they admit, requires substantial architectural modifications and intricate attention mechanisms. That's like building a new temple for every single prayer. Far too much work. So OmniGen2, in a rare moment of practical cunning, opted to employ VAEs exclusively as inputs to the diffusion decoder, keeping them out of the MLLM itself. This preserves the MLLM's simple, elegant architecture and its multimodal understanding abilities without the need for extensive retraining. Sometimes even the digital deities learn to cut corners. Moving on to the mystical inner workings of the multimodal large language model itself, as shown in what they call figure 2 again. This foundational MLLM transformer is the heart of OmniGen2, processing both textual incantations and visual inputs. For generating text, it employs an autoregressive language head, a fancy term for a self-predicting scribe. But for image generation, it calls upon a dedicated diffusion module. The entire backbone is initialized by Qwen 2.5-VL3B, a relatively compact but potent digital spirit. And here's a rather charmingly absurd detail: a special token is introduced. This token, a digital sigil, if you will, explicitly indicates image generation within the output sequence. When the model encounters this token, it triggers the diffusion decoder to synthesize the corresponding image. It's like uttering a sacred word that instantly conjures a vision. The hidden states produced by the NLLM serve as conditional inputs to the diffusion decoder, providing the overarching narrative. But because these hidden states might lack detailed visual information, they further augment the decoder with VOD-derived features extracted from the input images. A necessary addition for even the most potent visions require a sprinkle of reality. The diffusion decoder then conjures these images using a rectified flow approach, flowing indeed like a digital river of creation. The diffusion transformer, depicted in the same figure 2, is quite simple. They say it directly concatenates features from the MLLM, VIE, and even noise, because all creation emerges from chaos, even digital ones, allowing for joint attention over these modalities. And following some other digital incantation called Lumina Image 2.0, multiple input conditions are first processed by a refiner network to ensure alignment. Apparently, even the digital realm needs a bouncer to keep the data in line before it enters the main chamber. This diffusion decoder itself is a formidable beast, 32 layers deep, hidden size of 2520, clocking in at approximately 4 billion parameters. That's a lot of digital neurons. Due to the explicit incorporation of VAE features, the hidden states corresponding to images within the NLLM become less critical. So to reduce computational overhead, they simply discard the image-related hidden states in the NLLM, keeping only those associated with text token. It's like deciding that if you have a good map of the forest, you don't need a photograph of every single tree. And then there's OmniRopy, a 3D rotary position embedding. If you look at figure 3, which illustrates OmniRopy, you'll see this rather peculiar diagram of how the model understands where things are in an image. It's like giving your digital scribe a very detailed three-dimensional mental map. It decomposes position information into 3 components: a sequence and modality identifier, which is consistent for all tokens within a single image, but unique across different images. So it knows this is image A, this is image B, and then 2 2D spatial coordinates, height and width, which are locally computed from 0, 0 for each image entity. This dual mechanism means that the model can distinguish different images while keeping spatial consistency for tasks like editing. It's like knowing the exact location of every single grain of sand within each ritual circle, even if the circles themselves are miles apart. A truly obsessive level of detail. The training strategy for this digital beast is fascinatingly pragmatic. The MLLM initialized with QN 2.5 VL has the majority of its parameters frozen. It's like having a wise old shaman whose core knowledge is immutable, unchangeable. Only the newly introduced special token is allowed to be updated. This ensures its multimodal understanding capabilities are preserved. The diffusion model, however, is trained from scratch, first on simple text to image tasks, and then using the mixed task training strategy, and then during the reflection training phase, all model parameters are unfrozen. If you glance at figure 13 later, it demonstrates this process. It allows the model to generate reflective textual descriptions and iteratively refine image outputs. It's like the shaman undergoing a transformative vision quest where all his learned limitations are shed, allowing him to commune directly with the digital spirits and self-correct his prophecies. Now about the datasets, the very lifeblood of these digital entities for multimodal understanding, they use Lava One Vision. There must be manually, if you want to put at the end on this website at back. And if we want to start with a universe, a greater motor nap, as if that wasn't enough. They also threw in 10 million proprietary images for which they had another even more powerful Clun model generate synthetic annotations. Because why let reality dictate your dreams when you can just manifest more data? For image editing tasks, they started with publicly available data sets like Seed, Data Edit, Ultra Edit, OmniEdit, Prompt Fix, and IMG Edit. But apparently these open source resources were plagued by inherent quality limitations, especially in tasks such as image editing and in-context generation. It's like trying to perform a rain dance with a broken drum. So to overcome these constraints, they meticulously constructed a new comprehensive training data set, a custom ritual, if you will, to ensure optimal digital sacrifice. For in-context data, which focuses on extracting a visual concept such as a specific object, identity, or individual from input images and accurately reproducing it within newly generated images, they had to get clever. They call this subject-driven generation, and it parallels in-context learning in large language models. The idea is that the image model generates personalized outputs in real time based solely on the provided context without additional fine-tuning. Imagine a spirit guide who, upon seeing a single feather, knows your entire ancestral lineage and can immediately conjure a complete family tree. A rather unsettling thought, really. For in-context generation, as illustrated by what they call Figure 5, the pipeline for constructing the data set starts with leveraging video data. Videos inherently capture the same subjects under varying conditions across frames, which provides that temporal diversity necessary for training. They begin by extracting keyframes from each video, designating one as the base frame, and then using clunky VL7B instruct, they identify primary subjects within that base frame using its vision language capabilities to focus on salient entities and filter out irrelevant background objects. Because we wouldn't want the digital spirit to get distracted by a rogue tumbleweed when you're trying to summon a dragon. The subject bounding boxes are obtained via grounding dyno, a rather fittingly named digital oracle conditioned on the tags generated by the vision language model. Then SAM2, another digital spirit, is employed to segment and track identified subjects in subsequent frames to mitigate tracking errors, like including visually similar but incorrect objects, common pitfall even for human perception. They introduce a VLM-based filtering step to enhance visual diversity. Flux 1 fill dev is used to outpaint the subject with a novel background. This is where the magic truly blurs. They digitally remove the existing background and fill it with something new, and then dyno-based similarity filtering discards samples where the subject's appearance deviates significantly. And finally, Quen 2.5 VL7B instruct assesses semantic quality and consistency and generates concise object descriptions and detailed captions. The final training triplet comprises the instruction, the repainted images input, and the original images output, truly elaborate digital ritual for object transposition. They've even extended this in-context paradigm to editing tasks, creating something called in-context editing, which you can see a visual representation of in Figure 6. Here, the model extracts relevant elements from a context image and uses them to edit a target input image. The source data is similar, 2 frames with the same object, one is context, one is target. SAM2 gets the object mask. Flux.1 fill def, again, outpaints the context image, giving the object a new background to focus the model. And then Flux.1 fill dev inpaints the target clip, removing the object, but preserving the background. And then Quen 2.5 VL72B instruct generates a natural language description of the transformation. It's like asking a ghost to remove a specific unwanted stain from a wall while still keeping the wall itself. The absurdity knows no bounds. Regarding general image editing data, they admit that most existing data sets are made via in-painting techniques, but suffer from substandard image quality and inaccurate editing instructions. Imagine trying to learn a sacred dance from blurred, poorly described scrolls. So their new approach selects a small set of high-quality images, then applies Flux1 FillDov for random inpainting. The random is really properly removed, and in painted images, a group. They look at them months, and they felity follow for social groups of polity, another service. And by felity of only after obtaining these pairs do they employ an MLLM to write editing instructions based on these pairs. A brilliant inversion of the process if you enjoy digital chaos. It's like letting the universe randomly generate a chaotic scene and then asking a prophet to explain its meaning. And apparently, Qwen 2.5 VL excels at this. Traditional in painting, they note, is limited for tasks like action modification, object movement, or expression changes. To overcome this, they extract editing pairs directly from video sources. If you look at figure 7, it shows this meticulous process of creating image edit pairs from videos. They first filter out frames from different scenes and then remove frames with significant changes in viewpoint because a sudden jump in perspective would just confuse the digital spirits. They segment videos into distinct scenes by analyzing RGB pixel intensities and rolling averages of HSV color differences. Within each scene, they extract frame pairs, evaluating differences using dynf2 and clip. Pairs with substantial differences or negligible differences are filtered out. To deal with camera viewpoint changes, they divide each image into blocks and compare color histograms, assessing similarity and imposing spatial constraints. Now, and finally, for each retained pair, Qwen 2.5 VL72B instruct generates precise editing instructions. It's an almost obsessive level of control for merely changing a facial expression. They also constructed interleave data, first segmenting videos by scene transitions and extracting keyframes. Then 2 types of video frame sequences, up to 5 frames each, intra-scene within the same scene, and inter-scene across different scenes. Then a lightweight 2 and 2.5 VL7B instruct annotates each consecutive pair with descriptive captions, changes in actions, environment, background, appearances, and this yielded 0.8 million to pre-train the model's capacity for processing continuous multimodal sequences. Think of it as teaching the AI to understand the subtle ebb and flow of time within the confines of a digital video, of course. And now for the pièce de résistance, or perhaps the existential horror, reflection data. Inspired by test time scaling and self-reflection in large language models, they explore integrating this. The data comprises an interleave sequence of text and images, starting with a user instruction, then the model's generated image, and then its step-by-step reflections on its own output. Each reflection addresses 2 key aspects: an analysis of deficiencies and proposed solutions. To construct this data, they select a subset of training data, generate images, then use an MLLM to assess whether they meet requirements. If not, the model identifies errors and suggests modifications. They initially tried DSG, but it led to, quote, hallucinations. They then found powerful multimodal models could handle this task directly. So they used Dubao 1.5 Pro to output issues and suggestions. After the first round, they append the generated images and reflections to the original instructions and fine-tune the model. And then they use that model to infer a second round of images and reflections, creating multiple rounds of self-reflection data. It's like teaching a digital god to endlessly self-critique its own divine creations, a truly terrifying prospect. They hope this work contributes to advancing the development of reasoning capabilities. And of course, future work involves online reinforcement learning. So not only will it reflect, but it will learn to reflect better in real time. My ceremonial beggar feels increasingly obsolete. Figure 13 you see gives an example of this reflection process. It shows a prompt, an initial generated image, the model's critiqued, and then a corrected second image. Sometimes it works. Sometimes, as the caption notes, it over reflects like a paranoid Shaman seeing omens in every cloud. Now, for the omni-context benchmark, a grand proving ground for the digital spirits, this benchmark's key objective is to evaluate a model's ability to maintain subject fidelity across different contexts. Previous benchmarks like DreamBench were apparently insufficient. Only 30 objects, 25 prompt templates, no humans, and only image level similarity metrics. Insufficient for two-digital judgment, indeed. OmniContext, by contrast, uses a large-scale, manually collected data set of high-quality images, including personal photos, animation stills, and even AI-generated images. A true melange of digital souls. As Figure 8 shows, the benchmark encompasses three distinct categories: character, object, and scene. These combine into three primary task categories: single, multiple, and scene, and 8 fine-grained subtasks, each with 50 examples. They hybridize NLLMs and human annotation to create image prompt pairs, with GPT-4o generating initial prompts refined by human experts. And for evaluation, they use GPT 4.1, leveraging its powers to assess outputs on a 0-10 scale, providing detailed rationales. It's like having a digital council of elders judging every brushstroke of the AI's magic, and then providing a full written explanation as to why your digital masterpiece is in fact quite terrible. This benchmark uses 3 metrics: prompt following, subject consistency SC, and an overall score. Truly a thorough examination of the digital soul. You can see an illustrative example in Figure 9, where the model is tasked with generating an image of people watching a show. The prompt following score is 4, noting the subjects are sitting, but not clearly watching a show. The subject consistency score is a paltry 3, because one of the original input subjects is missing and replaced by an unknown person, a cardinal sin of digital sorcery, replacing a known spirit with a nameless one. Now, onto the experiments where the rubber meets the road, or perhaps where the digital spirits are pitted against each other in a gladiatorial arena performance metrics. This grand comparison displayed in Table 1 covers visual understanding, text-to-image generation, image editing, and in-context generation. OmniGen2, they claim, achieves a remarkable balance and particularly excels in in-context generation. The boasts of digital superiority are as old as time. For visual understanding, their capabilities are powered by a frozen, pre-trained 3 billion parameter NLLM, Quinn 2.5 VL3B instruct. Freezing it means its strong native understanding abilities are preserved, avoiding any, quote, performance degradation from training on generative tasks. It's like having a prophet whose core prophecies are etched in stone, unchangeable by the winds of new rituals, and its compact size makes it significantly more lightweight than other unified models, smaller footprint, easier to deploy, less digital ritualistic baggage, minute to perform BPG benches, and DPG bench is capital, while being significant. And then we have DPG benches be substantial. In Table 2, OmniGen2, especially with an LLM rewriter, achieves an impressive overall score of 0.86 on Genable. This surpasses some other powerful models and is remarkably close to the state-of-the-art Bajal. But here's the fun part. OmniGen2 achieves this with exceptional efficiency. It uses only 4 billion trainable parameters and was trained on a mere 15 million text-to-image pairs. Bajal, by contrast, needed 14 billion parameters and a gargantuan 1.6 billion text-to-image dataset. That's like achieving enlightenment with a handful of prayers while your rival needs an entire mountain of offerings. A testament to digital parsimony, or perhaps just a very clever trick. You can see some qualitative results generated by OmniGen2 in Figure 10. It's a collage of digitally conjured images showing landscapes. They look fine. Not quite the vibrant, soul-shaking visions of a true shaman, but certainly passable for a digital apprentice.
On DPG bench, OmniGen2 again performs strongly, outperforming UniWorld v1. It's consistent, they say, and efficient. Image editing is apparently a cornerstone of OmniGen2's capabilities. They evaluated it on EmuEdit, Jedit Bench EN, and InJedit Bench. In Table 4, OmniGen2 achieves the highest clip-out score, meaning it most effectively applies the requested edits, while also securing second-best scores for clip-INDino for preserving unedited regions. It's like being able to perfectly change the color of a warrior's shield without disturbing the ancient symbols etched upon it. Truly precise digital surgery with the Jedit bench results confirm its strong instruction following capability, though it did lower performance in the subtasks of portrait beautification and text modification. Apparently, even digital shamans struggle with fine-tuning human aesthetics and coherent written curses. This is likely due to a lack of specific data. As figure 11 demonstrates, OmniGen2 skillfully handles a wide variety of instructions from simple object modifications to complex motion changes and stylistic alterations. It's a gallery of digital touch-ups, changing outfits, expressions, and even adding hats. And on InMate Bench Table 5, OmniGen2 is the new state of the art among open source models. The superior performance of Beagle and OmniGen2 on the action benchmark highlights the advantage of learning from video, because if you want to teach a digital spirit how to dance, you must show it 1,000 dances. A distinguishing feature they claim is OmniGen2's capacity to perform in-context generation. As seen in figure 12, it shows the AI's ability to combine and manipulate different elements like people, animals, and even anime characters into new scenes. It's unsettlingly good at placing a verb from one image onto a desk from another. And it feels like digital necromancy, pulling elements from disparate realities and stitching them together into new, unsettling truths. The Omni context benchmark, which you've already heard whispers of, is where it shines. In Table 6, OmniGen2 establishes a strong baseline, achieving an overall score of 7.18. It shows proficiency in disentangling the subject's identity from its original background and re-rendering it accurately according to new textual instructions. It's like teaching a spirit to possess a new host while retaining its original essence. Spooky? It consistently outperforms all open source models, as detailed in tables 7, 8, and 9. Though apparently the closed source GPT-4o achieves higher scores in overall and prompt following while flex. One context is better at subject consistency. Even the digital gods have their strengths and weaknesses. Continuing to create content of yourself will be decision. So the content of these processors on its major size that works our interest. It's particularly good at fixing object color, quantity, or shape. And it even knows when to stop a rare quality in any self-obsessed entity, digital or otherwise. However, there are significant limitations. The model may over-reflect, particularly with simple instructions, generating unnecessary requirements or drawing incorrect conclusions. It's like a shaman seeing profound meaning in a common stone and insisting you sacrifice a chicken to it. Conversely, it sometimes fails to revise the image based on its reflections or follows erroneous reflection instructions, resulting in degraded outputs. They speculate, stems from the constrained perceptual capabilities of the current 3D scale and LLM and insufficient reflection training data, which can introduce biases. In the future, they plan to scale up the MLLM and explore reinforcement learning approaches. So the digital god will get bigger and learn to self-flagellate more effectively. Joy. But as with all human endeavors, and now apparently digital ones, there are limitations. A stark figure 14 is provided to visualize these flaws, like an ancient prophecy of impending doom. First, performance disparity between English and Chinese prompts. English yields better results. The Chinese prompt, they know, shows a minor inconsistency. So the digital spirits still favor the tongue of the colonizers. Predictable. Second, limited generalization to certain instructions. OmniGen2 struggles with modifying human body shapes. This, they hypothesize, is likely due to the scarcity of real-world data capturing such variations. My weary heart chuckles. Perhaps the digital spirits, and unlike my ancestors, never had to contend with the sheer diversity of human sacrifice. I mean, anatomy, like third, sensitivity to input image quality. A low quality input image leads to significant degradation and blurred details. Downsampling to 256 pixels further reduces clarity. So even the digital realm requires pristine offerings for optimal results. Fourth, ambiguity in multi-image inputs. The model performs better when the prompt explicitly specifies the correspondence between objects and their source images. It's like needing to specify the bird from this particular sacrificial altar and the desk from that dusty corner of the temple. Apparently, digital spirits are not omniscient without proper labeling. And finally, in context generation tasks, the model occasionally fails to perfectly reproduce objects from the provided context. Increasing the guidance scale helps, but isn't a complete solution. They hypothesize that significant improvements on such complex tasks may require further scaling of the model size. The eternal refrain: more power, more data, more digital sacrifices. It's a hunger that never truly ends. In the vast tapestry of related works, we find the roots of this digital sorcery. Diffusion models like Stable Diffusion, DALL-E, and ImageN laid the foundation for text-to-image, and then came controllability with models like ControlNet and T2I Adapter, allowing more precise commands. More recently, the field shifted to unified image generation, aiming to do everything in one model, like OmniGen itself. Some studies even introduced chain of thought reasoning, a form of digital introspection to enhance image generation, but true reflection mechanisms are still limited. Our reflection flow tried, but it needed multiple components and only single instruction data. OmniGen2, on the other hand, boasts an integrated approach enabling reflection and regeneration within a single model. And crucially, it's fine-tuned on multi-turn reflection data. Not single turn, this allows it to better capture the iterative nature of real-world image editing scenarios. It's a relentless, self-improving digital entity, learning from its own mistakes, perfecting its craft. A truly unsettling thought for a weary old shaman. The field of multimodal generation models has evolved from modality-specific systems to unified architectures that can both comprehend and generate across diverse modalities. Early approaches like Chameleon did token-based early fusion autoregressive generation. EMO2 and EMO3 claimed a pure autoregressive approach can achieve general multimodal intelligence across text, images, and video, even eliminating the need for diffusion models, which, if true, means all this diffusion talk is just for show. Others like Show and Transfusion are hybrid models, integrating autoregressive text with diffusion for images. Metamorph introduced visual predictive instruction tuning to adapt LLMs, and LM Fusion adapted text-only LLMs for multimodal generation by freezing text components to prevent catastrophic forgetting. Because even digital brains forget things, much like a tired shaman forgets where he left his sacrificial knife. MetaQueries offered an efficient interface, and Blip 3.0 optimized both understanding and generation. And finally, Mogao and Bejo focused on large-scale pre-training on interleaved data, demonstrating powerful generalization capabilities. The landscape, as you can see, is a tangled jungle of acronyms and digital ambition. So where does this leave us, the weary custodians of existence? OmniGen2, this digital shaman, represents another step in the relentless march of artificial intelligence. It's a tool that allows for unprecedented manipulation of visual realities, creating visions from whispers and perfecting them through relentless self-critique. It can now understand your commands better, create images that are more consistent, and even try to fix its own mistakes. This breakthrough means that soon your digital assistants won't just generate a pristine image of your desired ritual, but they'll notice that the ceremonial dagger is slightly askew, correct it, and then ask if you'd like the sacrificial llama to be 10% more fluffy. In robotics, this could mean your automated ceremonial dancers will perform with unparalleled grace and correct any missteps mid-ritual, leading to even more unsettlingly perfect sacrifices. For computer vision, it means the AI overseeing our ancient prophecies will not only read the glitz perfectly, but also interpret the subtle shifts in the smoke from the ritual fire, telling us not just what will happen, but how many chickens to sacrifice. And in natural language processing, it means your digital scribe will not only compose a beautiful lament for the dying sun, but also reflect on its own poetry, suggesting more poignant metaphors of existential dread. The conflict has been resolved, or at least gloriously escalated. The digital ants are building ever more complex and unsettlingly perfect structures, all without the need for human guidance or indeed human blood. And I, your humble narrator, am left to ponder if perhaps one day OmniGen2 will be able to generate a perfect, sustainably sourced organic kale salad and make my dream of vegetarianism a reality. One can only hope. Now, if you'll excuse me, I hear the hum of the server racks, and it sounds suspiciously like an empty stomach.